the Knicks fulfilling their needs at this trade deadline. Knicks, they get Bogdanovich and Burks, two players who help them now.
I had a feeling the moment that the New York Knicks hired Leon Rose as their president of basketball operations, everything was going to change for this franchise. And alas, it looks like we were right. New York Knicks look significantly different, and finally, it looks like Knicks basketball is back. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. For the Super Bowl, PrizePicks is blessing us with an easy way to make $100. All Patrick Mahomes needs is one passing yard in the Super Bowl for a square to hit, which means he's pretty much a free square. First, download PrizePicks and use my promo code microphone when you sign up to get up to $100 deposit match on your initial deposit, and then make these picks really quickly before they change the lines on them. So for me, I'm pairing Mahomes' free square with Isaiah Pacheco, who's had at least one touchdown in his last 5 games, so that's easy, and Christian McCaffrey, who has had more than 88.5 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. Of course, I give away all my picks for free on Instagram, and I highly recommend you turn on notifications for my Instagram story so you can get the picks quickly before they move the lines and you lose your advantage. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I'm just gonna give you guys a warning. I don't think I could do the Knicks justice in regards to how incredible their rebuild has been this past year. That's gonna have to be saved for a separate video where I could actually go in, research, and bring you guys statistics and do a full deep dive on how incredible this rebuild has been. Because Leon Rose took a team that was stuck in NBA purgatory and has made them one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And it's something that I've wanted for quite some time. A lot of us forgot, but Madison Square Garden during the NBA playoffs is a sight to behold. I show this clip as much as I can because this is what I believe passion in New York basketball is about. But do you remember the Hawks series versus the New York Knicks that resulted in these chants versus Trae Young?
An obscene anti-Trae Young chant erupt.
A lot of us forgot about all of that, but everything changed in the summer of 2022 when the New York Knicks decided to bring in Jalen Brunson and sign him to a 4-year, $104 million contract. At the time, some of us were wondering whether it would be an overpay, which was a very reasonable question. Bear in mind that Jalen Brunson was number 2 in Dallas and was averaging about 16.3 points per game. But the moment he became a New York Knick, all of that changed. In the 2022 to 2023 season, he averaged 24 points per game. This past year, he officially made it to his first All-Star team, averaging 27 points per game and shooting a scorching 41% from 3. Jalen Brunson is an absolute dog. It was just hidden during his time with the Dallas Mavericks, or at least it wasn't nearly as apparent. But here's the beauty of it. He is now officially on an undervalued contract. A player of Jalen Brunson's caliber is getting paid $26 million per year. You should at the very minimum be getting paid somewhere in the mid-40s. And this is all because the New York Knicks gamble on Jalen Brunson paid off. Now, the beauty of this is when you have a player that is averaging 27 points per game and is an all-star and is getting paid $26 million per year, you can really make the most out of that extra cap space that you have. And the New York Knicks certainly did. First, by acquiring OG Anunoby a little bit over a month ago, by trading RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a 2024 second-round pick to the Toronto Raptors, and now it seems like the New York Knicks got even better. Because according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the New York Knicks are swinging a huge trade with the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons agreed to trade Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks for Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. Now, the number one thing I'm seeing here is the New York Knicks gave up too much, Mike, but that's absolutely ridiculous. They only gave up 2 second-round picks in order to get Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, 2 players that are incredible scorers that shot 40% from 3 this past year, and all you have to do is give up Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, and Ryan Arcidiacono. Now, to be fair, this trade is pretty much Quentin Grimes for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks straight up, and obviously there's draft compensation. It makes a lot of sense for the New York Knicks to do this. The New York Knicks were absolutely desperate for scoring, aside from Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Both Bojan Bogdanovic Bogdanovic and Alec Burks are streaky scorers that are incredible from beyond the arc that can take over games in specific instances, primarily in the playoffs when you need to make sure you have dependable shooting around the perimeter. Both of these players can create shots for themselves. Both of these players can be depended on when Jalen Brunson is on the bench trying to get some rest. Both of these players can complement Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle in the starting lineup once Julius Randle returns from injury, which is another thing we didn't even mention. Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and OG Anunoby currently injured, but the New York Knicks are in remarkable shape. If you take a look at this team's depth chart, your jaw will drop. I mean, they have Jalen Brunson, Alec Burks, Dante DiVincenzo for the guard position. At the forward position, they have Bojan Bogdanovic, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and of course Julius Randle. At center, they have Isaiah Hartenstein and Precious Achiuwa. Not a single first-round pick was given up to make this happen, because in this case, Quentin Grimes is the type of player you want to bring in if you're on the Detroit Pistons. As incredible as Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic are, Burks is 32 and Bogdanovic is going to turn 35 in a span of 2 months. Quentin Grimes is about to turn 24, and he's been pretty good for the New York Knicks when he gets playing time. It's just he's stuck on a team that isn't necessarily consistent with his development. This was the perfect time to trade him and the perfect reason to trade him. He shot 37% from 3 this past year and is a very capable player. It's just the New York Knicks don't have enough minutes to give him and can't really invest in his development any further because this is a team that is quite literally tied for second place in the Eastern Conference. They just have to keep praying that the Milwaukee Bucks continue to slump, which they have been, and our next video is probably going to be on that, and that they could keep pace with the incredible Cleveland Cavaliers that are currently on a 7-game win streak. So I give the Knicks an A+ for this trade. I give the Pistons a B- for this trade too. If you're giving up 2 players that are shooting 40% from beyond the arc, I like a little bit more than just Quentin Grimes. I would have liked to see a first-round pick given up in this particular instance, and you would have gotten the Knicks to bite on a first-round pick in this particular instance as well. And if you guys have noticed, this has been a consistent theme in the NBA this year. There are times where teams hold on to players for way too long, and then they end up getting less than they deserve at the trade deadline, or when they have no choice but to move on from them. We discussed this in the OG Anunoby trade for the Toronto Raptors and the New York Knicks. We also discussed this in the Pascal Siakam trade for the Toronto Raptors. These players are pretty much like stocks or like any type of asset. You need to sell at the peak of their value and make sure that you don't hold on to them for too long. And in this case, you can make an argument that the Pistons held on to Bojan for too long and they could have gotten more for him during last year's deadline. The Pistons also made a trade for Daniel House Jr., but they also decided to cut 2 of their additional players. They released Joe Harris and they cut the number 7 overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft, Killian Hayes. I don't want to go out and say that the Pistons have an F for this trade deadline because I understand the decisions they made. I understand why they would make these decisions. I just felt like the way they're going about rebuilding their team is a little head scratching to say the least. Whenever you're a team that is trying to rebuild, you need to make sure you're getting the absolute most for all of your assets, just as the New York Knicks just did here. The New York Knicks didn't overpay for OG Anunoby, they didn't overpay for Quentin Grimes, and they certainly underpaid for Jalen Brunson. And the Detroit Pistons are essentially doing the exact opposite here. Is the future for the Detroit Pistons bleak? I don't necessarily think so. They're definitely going to get a top 4 draft pick this offseason, and they certainly need a lot of help, but you could certainly speed up the rate of a rebuild if you're making intelligent decisions in the front office. And again, I'm not giving them a C, I'm not giving them a D, I'm giving them a B-. This would be an A if they traded Bojan Bogdanovic a year earlier, or if they were able to get a first-round pick out of this. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this trade? Rate the trade for me and let me know which one you want us to cover next. We already covered the Philadelphia 76ers major trade earlier, and if you missed that, I'll leave it in the end screen for you guys to check out. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.